Hello and happy equinox. Well, it will be in about 6 hours for everyone, 12 hours. I am going to share some information with you today about the body and mind balance and how that impacts fatigue and the impact of nature on our energy levels and our health, and also a little bit about spirituality and chronic fatigue and burnout. I don't believe you will have heard a lot of what I've got to share because it's not very commonly shared by many practitioners. I'm a holistic psychologist. I focus on body, mind, and spirit. I'm also someone who experienced firstly many years of burnout and then was diagnosed with adrenal fatigue in 2013. So I'm speaking from a place of having gone through it myself and from having the background and the background from my studies and from the research that I've done and from working with many clients. And I personally believe that to truly overcome chronic fatigue and burnout, we have to look at all those different aspects: body, mind, and spirit. And so today I'm going to share a bit more about that and tie it into the equinox that is happening soon. All right, so let me get myself a bit more sorted here. Who am I besides that? Well, this is my story. In 2013, after my daughter was born, I was very, very tired. I thought it was a little bit of sleep deprivation, a lot of sleep deprivation. Usually when I've been tired, I've managed to bounce back quite quickly. There was just no bouncing happening. And then an entire year had passed, and I was still as flat as a pancake, yet also strangely like wired and all over the show. Unfortunately, my lovely and very clever sister, who is a functional doctor, was able to diagnose adrenal fatigue syndrome and guided me on the correct path to what to do about it. So I started taking the necessary supplements and bioidentical hormones. I changed my diet and I started to feel better. And of course, what did I do? I hit the ground running at the same pace that I had left it when I was flat on my back. And naturally, I crashed very soon after that. And then I did that 4 times. I was a slow learner back then. I was so flippin' tired. I just did not have the capacity to apply my mind to what needed to happen. I knew with my training that this had to be more than just physically helping my body, that there was a whole body-mind component, but I did not have the capacity to go into it at that point. It was only as I started to actually become less tired that I then was able to think more clearly about it. And one day it just hit me. If I keep on doing the same thing and I keep on crashing, then my default way of doing life clearly is not good for me. Ka-ching! It was like a real light bulb moment. And then I had this other epiphany, which was, wow, there's quite a gift in this for me, actually. So I want you to hold this perspective. Nothing is good or bad. It is simply neutral until we give it a meaning. Being fatigued chronically is very uncomfortable. It's hugely frustrating and very inconvenient. However, it is only bad if we decide that it is bad, if we decide that there's something wrong with us, if we decide that it is wrong, that it is unfair. It's allowed to be uncomfortable, but what about holding the perspective that it can also be an opportunity, that it can also be an opportunity to do life differently, to invite new possibilities, and to learn more about yourself. Because that is what happened for me. That is what happens for so many of my clients as I take them through this healing journey, as I help them to become conscious about why their body feels necessary. It is necessary to speak up and shout at them in such loud symptoms that brings them to their knees. Because it is so much about connecting and listening, and I'll share more about that too. So today I want to just speak about, let me also give you some more background here. So what I started to realize in my own life was that I had got to where I was because I had been pushing myself and living my life in a very, very contracted way. What I mean by this is that I realized that I, like many of my clients that I then began to attract into my practice, tended to be people who held everything together. We held our emotions together. We held ourselves up to high expectations. We held many balls in the air. We held everyone else's stuff for them as well. And we tried to hold it all together. Everything had to be in control and perfect. And we needed to achieve and succeed. And often were people pleasers and had poor boundaries. These are many of the themes that came up. And I started to call this the holding personality. And not everyone's going to fit into this. We're all different. But these are just some of the themes that came up. And what I realized was that for many of us, we had chosen to take on this way of being because it helped us to feel safe, it helped us to feel in control, and it helped us to feel like we were worthy and enough. And because on some level we'd all experienced just a little bit of trauma, unfortunately for some more than that. And what I'm talking about is where Gabor Mate speaks about trauma as any time where it did not feel safe to show up as your authentic self. Now, for most of us, our caregivers, our teachers, society in general, have many undealt with wounds, unresolved wounds. And as soon as they get activated by someone else, they want to shut that down because they don't want to feel it. So what this means is that when a child expresses their anger, their sadness, their frustration, and it brings up in the caregiver something that they haven't dealt with from their own past, they want to shut it down or punish, criticize or ignore or distract or whatever it might be. And so we subtly learn that in order to be loved, to be of value, to be a good girl or boy, we need to show up in a certain way. Some of us more so than others. And I call this adapted personality, which is actually a trauma-informed personality. I call it the holding personality. I don't want to go too much into that. I'm going to drop a link for an ebook that I've created, an ebook that you can read about more about that. And that's very bad punctuation or grammar, but anyway, in the ebook there is more information about the holding personality. So that's the background, right? So given that context, what I want to share today is then how does that lead to chronic fatigue? So our energy levels and our body are deeply, deeply impacted by our psychology, the way we feel about life, the way we think, the way we experience life, and most specifically, our nervous system is very impacted by our psychology. And so anytime we felt slightly unsafe, anytime we felt that the way we were showing up was not going to be fully accepted, and we had a little bit of a fight-flight response, enough that we needed to adapt ourselves, it created a nervous system response, a bit of dysregulation. And if that happened fairly chronically, and this can be worsened by further traumas, inconsistent parenting, unpredictable life changes, parents who just really were not present, add a few things to that, it can make it worse, then we can have a very dysregulated nervous system. Now, a dysregulated nervous system means that we very easily go into a stress response, fight, flight, or freeze, or fawn, which is people pleasing, or that, and we cannot be creating energy. We can't create energy when our nervous system is activated more chronically than not. So take, for instance, the cell danger response. Our mitochondria will either be in one of two states, and the mitochondria are the powerhouses of the cell, of every cell. And the mitochondria can either be in cell danger response or energy production mode. And we want energy production mode, right? But as soon as our brain perceives a threat, the mitochondria goes into cell danger response, energy production shuts down, and you can see what happens if you stay in cell danger response too long. You're not producing that much energy. And many of us spend a lot of time in that state, and we don't even realize it. So I was trained as a psychologist and I'd done body talk, yet I was still not fully connected to and conscious of quite the degree to how much my personality and my way of being and doing life and experiencing life was causing health issues for me and impacting my body. I started, I'm not even going to go into that. I'll pick up on that later. But I just want to say that I want you to entertain the possibility that maybe your default way of doing things, which you consider to be normal, may not be in your best interests. And I hesitate to say that if you're here listening to this and you're battling with burnout, your nervous system is very likely dysregulated, and very likely your body is trying to tell you it is time to change. Something needs to change. That the way you've been doing life needs to change. Maybe you know that, you don't know how. And maybe you're just very frustrated with me right now because it feels like I'm not giving you answers. I'm hoping I'll give you a few more answers as we go on. Okay. So I'd like you to consider this, just in line with that. Do you ever, or how often, and I'm sure it's probably not very often now with how you've been feeling, but even before that, how often have you spent time in a place where you feel deeply connected, joyful, present, with feeling like you are alive, that you are living your full purpose? How often do you spend time there? Or do you generally spend your life feeling kind of like you're on like automatic mode and you're just surviving? That is what I'm talking about. That default is linked to a disconnection from the body and a dysregulated nervous system. And it does not have to be that way. It is actually our birthright to have an abundance of energy, an abundance of money, of connections, friends, joy, time, health. Yes, there's going to be some ups and downs in that. We're not going to always have perfection. Okay, perfection is something totally different. That is unattainable. But we are allowed to have a lot more than what we currently have. And that's a huge part of what I'm going to be speaking about today. It's because when we keep ourselves in that adapted mode, to keep ourselves small because we think it keeps us safe, not only does it exhaust us, but it prevents us from healing. So, let's see here. I want to help you to just become aware of two different energy states. They represent different qualities. They actually have nothing at all to do with gender, but to support my explanation of them, I'm going to talk about them as the masculine and feminine. And again, these are present in everyone, regardless of gender orientation. However, most of us know the masculine very well, and we don't have much of the feminine showing up. Now, masculine energy and the qualities of masculine energy in its purest form is presence, consistent presence, stillness and silence. A container with this sort of empty present stillness, right? Rested, held. Strength, so being solid, stable, and direction, movement, and clarity, and knowing and understanding. We all know those to some or another degree. What we know less of are the feminine qualities. So the feminine essence is life force. It is the creative energy. It is the sexual essence that creates form on this planet. Not just people, and not just living beings. Not just people and animals and other creatures, but also nature and anything that has been created comes initially from this feminine essence, and then the masculine gives it form and helps it to come into being. So the sexual essence in this aspect is full of life force. It is full of vitality. It is passion and pleasure, and it's also, the feminine is also about emotions. It's also about being in our bodies. It's about being connected, and it's about an inner knowing and a deep a deep remembering and knowing of our truth and our answers. And when we are fully able to embrace that and embody that without shame and guilt and all the other things that have been loaded on those qualities and ways of being, that is when we can feel more alive and rejuvenated and energized and vital. But what has happened is most of us have gone into the masculine in a very distorted way, to the extreme of content or structure being like rigidity. It's linear. It's always being in action. It's driven. It's always having to know, always having to understand. And all of this is in disconnection from the feminine. There's no connection to the feminine. And that presence and stillness, there's none of that. We're mostly out there, right? And when I mean out there, it's like we in our heads. We're floating away with the fairies. We're not here in our bodies and feeling our feelings and noticing our body's needs. So I want to help you. Okay, before I do that, what does distorted masculine have to do with the holding personality? We've grown up in a society where distorted masculine values are revered. It's seen as really good to be able to strive and succeed and achieve and be in action all the time, and to have intellectual prowess, and to be smart in that way. And we witness this growing up, and we witness our parents and our caregivers. And so as we adapt ourselves to belong, to be safe, to feel empowered, we naturally adapt that way of being. Because that is what helps us to feel like we're strong and empowered and belong and in control. And the irony is that the more that we try and live in that lifestyle, the more disempowered and overwhelmed we actually feel, because we're totally disconnected from a huge aspect of ourselves. And when we're in that place of distorted masculine, there's a contraction. And we, in a lot of self-reliance often, and we often are also cut off from receiving that beautiful feminine essence, because we don't want to feel our feelings, we don't want to be in our body. So by the same token, then we stop ourselves from receiving life force and vitality that comes with that experience of receiving all of that. Let me help you to feel all of this today. I'd like you to close your eyes, please. And I'd like you to please start imagining your normal day. Imagining that you're waking up in the morning and you start to think about your day. Just notice kind of if anything starts stirring in your body. And then you have to get up and actually get going, whether you have children that you need to get ready, just yourself or partner. Not that you have to get your partner ready, but maybe you're getting ready with a partner. And then continuing into your day. How do you get to where you're going, where you need to be? What do you have to do? How does it feel? I'd like you to just pay attention to your body. Are you pulling up and pushing forward, or are you resting back and dropping down as you think of all of this? And then I want you to please think about, how much are you having to hold? How much is on your plate? How supported are you feeling? And how does that feel in your body? And take it a step further. I'd like you to think about something that's a bit stressful. Maybe you've got this overwhelming to-do list that just never seems to get shorter. So many responsibilities. An email, an unexpected email that brings more to do. A car that breaks down. And then what happens to your body? Then how do you feel? This is going to give you some indication of how we usually live, which is in a more distorted masculine way, particularly when under stress. Some of you may have felt quite calm and centered and supported, but I imagine that many of you will realize that you spend a lot of your time feeling quite unsupported and often stressed and maybe powerless, and that it results in the body going into a bit of contraction and bracing and pushing. And then as we do all of this, the nervous system is activated, even if just a tiny bit. There is some nervous system activation, and when the nervous system is activated, the various different systems in our body cannot function properly. That cell danger response is happening. We cannot be rejuvenating ourselves. We cannot be healing. We cannot be receiving life force because we've gone into contraction. Now I'd like to help you to feel the opposite. So can you please take a few deep breaths now and allow your breath to be the invitation into your body, following the path of your breath with your awareness. And as you do that, allow yourself to just land more in your body. Allow yourself to be at home with whatever's there without needing it to be different. And allow yourself to soften around that, to lean back, to drop down, and to just let it be without resisting everything. And now imagine that as you soften, you drop right down through the pelvic floor into the earth below. And that you are a seed in the soil. A seed that simply rests there, held safe and snug, receiving the necessary minerals and water and nourishment, the warmth from the sun below above. The seed doesn't have to do anything. It just receives. It doesn't have to earn it. It doesn't have to run around getting busy, proving itself. And as that sunlight warms the soil, it calls the seed to become something more. So this is the masculine energy meeting the feminine. Masculine helps bring that feminine into creation. And the seed begins to crack open and unfold. And again, the seed doesn't have to know how. It doesn't have to have it all figured out. It doesn't have to plan it. It just happens. And then it slowly moves through the soil, breaks through, and becomes a flower, with the sun radiating around it, giving it deep presence, and just allowing it, honoring it. It is exactly as it's meant to be. This is living in a place of healthy masculine and feminine. And we're not always going to be able to be in this place. Real life is very hard to navigate if we're constantly trying to be in this place, but I can tell you that it's possible to be there a lot more often than you are. And when you're in that place, when you are allowing things to unfold, when you are listening to your intuition, it's incredible. When you are embracing the feminine, that is when you start to heal. Now, what does that look like in real life? Truly, it looks like trusting life and trusting that you are held and supported, that you don't have to have it all figured out, you don't have to control it, you don't have to plan all of it, you don't have to organize all of it. Yeah, sure, you're going to do some of that. That's okay. We need some of that. We need some masculine. We don't need masculine all the time. We need to sometimes surrender and let it go and just trust that it will be okay. It's about taking time to rest when you need to rest and trusting that life won't fall apart. It's about feeling calm and rested in your body. It's about receiving abundance and synchronicity and ease. It's about the answers arising from within and spending far less time and energy on trying to have it all figured out and going down the wrong path and having to come back and start over again. It's about creating and producing whatever it might be that you want to serve or bring into the world, while feeling supported and nourished, versus driven, addicted, overwhelmed, generally just exhausted. It's about receiving all the time. Because like I said, there is an abundance available to us. We are wired to receive this life force. But then we have to be open to receiving everything that comes with it. The emotions, the feeling. But that's also where that masculine is so important, because if we allow ourselves to feel safe and held and supported, it's easier to trust that we'll be able to manage whatever comes up in our lives. And that with the bad and the challenging comes the good. With every transformation, with every challenge comes a gift and transformation. It's about the nervous system being calm for long enough periods that the body can actually rejuvenate and heal, and that the cells can be nourished. It's about feeling alive. It's about feeling powerful, just being who you are, and trusting that you are valued, that you are worthy, and that the world needs you just as you are, as it needs all of us. Can you see how this is connecting into spirituality? When we are truly receiving and allowing ourselves to receive life, and the feminine as well as the masculine, we are allowing ourselves to trust that we are held and supported and guided. I mean, how many of us truly trust life, right? We spend a huge amount of energy and time trying to make sure that nothing goes wrong. And sometimes those things have to go wrong, because it's through that path that we receive what we need to receive. So this is a fundamentally different way of living in relationship to life. It's for me, spirituality is about trusting that you are held, supported, and guided by something, which will bring that sort of healthy masculine energy, and that you are able to fully embrace and express your greatest and highest version of yourself in the world. Because just like that seed, if we get out of our own way, we are designed to unfold. It's called a self-actualization tendency. We are designed to self-actualize. We're designed to meet that blueprint of our greatest and highest self by resting into that, trusting it, listening to what needs to happen. And then it's not like we do nothing, because what happens is the guidance comes, and then we take a step, and we take another step, and take another step, and life meets us and supports us, and it is so much easier. We spend so much less energy, and we also stop resisting how things are happening, because we trust that it's part of the process. So can you see that this is it's actually a different way of conceiving of life. It's a different way of perceiving how life works. And so in many ways, my journey through adrenal fatigue syndrome has actually supported me to have a completely different spiritual outlook. And as a result, I feel so much calmer and safer, so that my nervous system has been able to settle, so that I've been able to receive, and then all this beautiful stuff has just unfolded through me in the process. Now, what the heck has this got to do with equinox? Part of this distorted masculine energy is that we have disconnected not only from our bodies, because we're in our head all the time, but we've disconnected from nature. Because the distorted masculine energy is part of the dominant patriarchal way of being, which we've all bought into, because it's about capitalism and productivity. And this, in many ways, means we need to overcome our humanness and kind of become these supernatural versions of ourselves, and not be bogged down by our natural needs and by nature and the way of what, you know, the way that nature does things. We think we're like above it all. And actually we are deeply impacted by nature, by the cycles and rhythms of nature. And this is not woo-woo. This is based on the changes in light, for instance, the impact on the water in our body. It shifts hormones in our body. Various different things will shift and change over the course of these cycles so that our needs change. But because we're disconnected from our bodies, we don't realize, and disconnected from nature, we don't realize what our needs are. And so we don't allow ourselves to flow with those different needs. And we override our body's needs and become exhausted. So one of the greatest myths, unfortunately, that has been perpetuated in this way of living is that we should all be able to feel the same every single day and produce and work and be on form in the same way every single day. It's not possible. We're not designed that way. Men are more able to do it, or people in male bodies, because they have hormone cycles that are roughly around 24 hours. But they're still impacted by the different lunar phases and the different seasons. Women obviously are not the same every single day while menstruating, because our body's needs and energy levels, etc., change over more like a 28-day cycle, depending on what your cycle is. Yet we believe that we are supposed to show up and be in that distorted masculine energy 24/7, 365, and that if we're not, there's something wrong with us. Second myth that I want to bust here today is the myth that there is something wrong with being tired. There is nothing wrong with being tired. Tired is necessary. Tired is essential. Tired is your body's way of telling you that you need to stop and rest. Maybe you need to heal something. Maybe you need to feel something. Maybe you are needing to hear something from your body. Rest is essential. Stopping is essential. We cannot rise if we don't rest. Just like the tree cannot be really tall unless it has beautiful big roots, a beautiful big root system. We cannot rise fully into our greatest power if we are not rooted in our bodies, rested, listening and connected. What is wrong is if we do not take time to rest and treat being tired like there's something wrong, because then we become pathologically tired. Because not only are we not resting, but we're expending energy on resisting our body's needs. Can you see how this leads to burnout and fatigue? So what I really want you to take from this is that the masculine and feminine energy have to coexist. We need to be able to have the action and the rest. Both need to be there. And when we have the stillness and silence and presence and stopping of the masculine, it enables the feminine to rise up, being able to listen and be in touch with our intuition, being able to feel what we need, being able to hear what we need, being able to give ourselves that, nourish ourselves, and then the masculine meets that and helps us to then bring that into the world as we take action steps, or we have clarity about what that means. That is a very different way of being. So let me explain what happens in cycles and rhythms. There are 4 phases in circadian rhythms, menstrual cycle, lunar cycle, and seasons. And those 4 phases have 2 feminine and 2 masculine phases. Now, I want to describe it. I'm going to show it to you as a cycle, okay, as a cycle that does this. So imagine a flower, it's a little plant, is a little seed, starts to sprout, starts to get taller, it radiates and blooms, it starts to die, it returns to the soil. Okay, so it's a cycle. Now, every phase has either masculine or feminine qualities. So the 2 at the bottom are feminine and the 2 at the top are masculine. So these 2, so let's say we start here. This is the new moon up to half moon. This is menstruation up to when we begin to produce eggs, the follicular phase. This is winter up to spring. Okay, so here's your equinox in the northern hemisphere. Winter up to spring, going into spring and then summer. So it's about being in this phase of deep feminine energy, hibernation, resting, stillness, listening, receiving, being nourished. This is when we are most called and most need to rest. And if we ignore this, it impacts the entire rest of those phases. If we listen to it and we anchor ourselves in a deep foundation of rest, at this point in time, it supports us to really get the best out of the next cycle. So I'll explain all the cycles and then we'll talk about what that looks like. So that's the first cycle. Then we move into masculine. So this is feminine for the first quarter, masculine for the second quarter. So this is about more movement, more energy, putting ourselves out there, taking action, taking steps, feeling like we want to actually be in action. That is spring to summer. It is the follicular phase to ovulation. It is where are we? What have I missed? I didn't say that the bottom one here is 12 p.m. to 6 a.m. This is 6 a.m. to 12 p.m. And lunar cycle. So this is the half moon to the full moon. Then we've got another masculine phase in the third quarter. So this is ovulation. This is the full moon to the half moon, waning. This is the 12 p.m. to 6 p.m. and it is the luteal phase. It's ovulation. And this is where we are now, summer in the southern hemisphere. It's summer going into autumn, down to winter. Can you see the energy? So in the northern hemisphere right now we're actually in balance. We're in balance, equal masculine and feminine. We haven't yet tilted. We are in the middle. So we also mustn't start running off in the northern hemisphere. Start running into spring now because we're full of energy. The transition needs to be taking some of this grounded, rested energy slowly into spring, and then we will not burn out by summer. And in the southern hemisphere, going from summer now, we're going to go into. So I was up here. We're going to go into autumn. We're going into masculine. So that energy. So firstly, the summer energy is out there, it's radiant, it's attractive, it's sharing ourselves and our work with the world. It's feeling like we have more energy. Then when we go into that third phase, the luteal phase, the waning moon down to new moon, autumn, this is when things start to come together again. It's the returning to the soil. It is feminine. So it is about turning, it's like endings. Culmination, reconciling, reviewing. It's a good time to do admin. Now, what I'm trying to show you there is that we move through phases of masculine, phases of feminine all the time. And we are deeply impacted by them. And they impact our energy levels. And they support certain actions and don't support other actions. And if we ignore the feminine, we burn out radically. The more we ignore the rooting and resting in the feminine right at the beginning, the more we feel it hectically by the end. What does it mean for real life? How can you bring more rest into your life in every day, in every lunar cycle? And there's going to be different things in every lunar cycle, in every menstrual cycle, and in every season. So you're going to know that in every day there might be a point in the day where your energy wanes a little bit, usually around 3 p.m. That's your natural circadian rhythm. Take 5 minutes, let yourself take a break. I explain this to my clients all the time, and they resist it so much. When we resist, when we surrender into our exhaustion and let it be okay to be tired and to rest, we actually nourish ourselves because we're no longer resisting. We're no longer spending energy on resisting. Why am I tired? What's wrong with me? We rest and we rejuvenate and we receive from the soil. We receive that life force, and then we have more to go with. And the problem is when you first start doing that, it can often make you feel more tired because there are layers of exhaustion down there, right? But what I've noticed in my life now is that as I've been doing this now for a number of years, I require less and less stopping time. And when I can stop, because I can't always, sometimes I want to just push through. When I can stop, it feeds me so much more than it would have in the past. But I had to start somewhere. I had to start allowing myself to stop and bring rest in. I take quiet time after lunch every afternoon. I try and take 20 minutes if I can. So that's my day. In my menstrual cycle, I'll try and rest more in the first couple of days of my menstruation, particularly on the first day or the day of my heaviest bleed, if I know what that is. I take time off every new moon, and I may do a little bit of work, but generally I don't. I have the privilege of doing that. I understand that. Some people don't. But where possible, try not socialize as much. Try not to book as many meetings. Try and just have a few more moments of breathing, grounding, resting, stopping. And then I'm aware that in winter, I need to rest more. So I take a longer holiday when it's my kids' school holiday. I take most of my time then so that I can get a good period of rest then. So that's how I have learned to structure my life. And in my calendar, I constantly know what my menstrual cycle is, because the menstrual cycle is the one that impacts your energy levels the most. So what does this do? It empowers you. It empowers you to give yourself permission to rest. It empowers you to know how to plan your life so that you can have health and well-being and vitality. It empowers you to feed yourself and rejuvenate yourself so you've got more to give when you do give. Also, our nervous systems absolutely love structure and predictability and rhythm. So when we start to do this regularly, it is so calming for the nervous system and therefore very healing. What can you take from this? 3 action steps. Firstly, 1, bring in that healthy masculine energy. Stop and connect to your body. Notice when you are activated. Notice when your nervous system is activated. And just bring in a little bit of stillness and silence. 2, listen. So stop. 2, listen. What does your body need? Does it need breathing? Does it need food? Does it need to go to the toilet? Does it need to lie down, flatten your back for 5 minutes? Does it need to get away from this person that you're with? Listen to what your body needs. 3, give your body what it needs as much as possible. The more you do this, the more you are rewiring your nervous system. The more you are giving your body the message that it is important. The more you will feel safe. The more you will be receiving life force, goodness, abundance. And the more easily you will continue to receive that. That invites more vitality. It invites more connection. It invites more of you not just healing your body, but showing up more fully in this version of yourself that you know is possible. That's it. That's what I have to share with you today. I know it might sound a bit far-fetched. I have done it. I'm continuing to do it. It's an ongoing journey. It is not linear like the distorted masculine, where there's a beginning and end. It's cyclical. I go through cycles, but I can see that my cycles are ensuring that there's improvement all the time. And I just want you to know that I've also seen this work with my clients as well. I've seen the shifts and changes. I know it's possible. So if you want to know a bit more, if you want to know what this could look like in your life, if you want to know how I can support you, please reach out. Kerry@kerrymagnus.net, and let's talk about it. Otherwise, please just take from this that it is very important to listen to what you need and to know that it's okay to have rest and to find ways to bring that in. so that you have both that feminine and that masculine energy in your life. All right, take care, everyone. Thank you.